You have one new message.
Hey Coach, Striker here. Saw that your first game in the new world went well. Congrats. Listen, I know I'm not there to sniff around for information, but you gotta understand that I did what I had to do by leaving Draft League City. But before I got out of there, I paid a few people a few visits. And one of them was your friend Onesie. I got good news and bad news. Good news is, it's definitely him. This Red Sugimori stuff, it's all done. He's gone back to Kopikan, like me. Bad news is, he ain't your ally no more. But I know I'm asking you to stick your neck out trusting me with this. Especially against a former close friend. But he's got plans in this freaking wasteland. He's trying to take control of your old council, turn him against you for his own ends. I don't know specifically what he's planning, but you gotta watch your back out there. Remember, your boy the Dumb Fanatic did the same thing a ways back. You can't trust Onesie, no matter what happened in that battle. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. You can't trust anyone without pretty clear evidence that they're on your side. There ain't no rules no more. Yeah, great. Yeah, I'll be right there in 1 sec. Look, I gotta go. I got people to see here. Keep an eye out. I've heard there's a cult building support in the city limits. I'm sure you'll run into them soon enough. Might be Necro Stevo doing his thing again, but I ain't heard anything on him in a hot minute. In the meantime, keep your head down. You got more enemies out there than you know. Let's hope this Kahuutz fella you're up against next ain't one of them. Good luck, Coach.
Hello everyone, Shroomraver here, and today we are here for week 2 of the MBC. Yes indeed, last time we got off to a good start with a win over Onesie Bay Net. Today we are taking on Kahuutz and the Hawaiian Kommo-os. His links down in the description below along with everyone else in the league. Make sure you check them all out. Kahuutz is a good dude. I didn't know him very well before this, but we were chatting during the draft. I was pick 1, he was pick 2, so we had a bit of a good chat around that. He's a good battler and his team is nasty. He is rocking out with Dragapult, Landorus Therian, King Gambit, Ogerpon Cornerstone, Clefable, Hitmontop, Hisuian Zoroark, Lantern, Salazzle, Espeon and Spidops. Terra Captains that can go anything are Lantern and the Landorus Therian, which is a very scary prospect. I was close to picking up Landorus Therian myself, but I opted not to and he got it instead. So, what are we going to be bringing up against him? We are leading off here with Choice Scarfed Iron Valiant, a mixed attacker here with Moonblast, Aura Sphere, Poison Jab and D-Bond. Moonblast is fairly free into his team. The only real resist he has is that Salazzle. So we're going to have to try and whittle that down as much as possible. 208 speed, positive nature is allowing us to outrun the Ogerpon Cornerstone. Poison Jab mostly on there for that Clefable if it becomes a problem with Calm Minds. And we have that Scarf Destiny Bond in the back just in case we need it. Next up we have the debuting Petulant here, a very physically defensive set. This is the best thing we have to take on that Ogerpon Cornerstone. It can do a lot of damage to my team. We have a Shuckerberry on there just in case of Stomping Tantrum and to take a hit in a clutch moment against that Landorus Therian. We have Malignant Chain, Nightshade, Foul Play and Recover. Foul Play was a late addition just in case of Swords Dancing Landorus, Dragon Dancing Dragapult, stuff like that. We want this thing to be as annoying as possible if we can. Third member of the team is going to be Physical Assault Vest Blastoise, making its debut here. We have Rapid Spin, Flip Turn, Earthquake and Avalanche. Very physically defensive. We've got some nominal attack investment in there that hopefully will allow us to 2-hit KO the Lantern. Avalanche is good on U-turns from the Landorus into something like the Dragapult, maybe even the Ogerpon, stuff like that. Rapid Spin going to be useful to keeping away those hazards. He might have T-Spikes on the Salazzle. I don't want them up to help out with our next member, which is going to be Citrus Berry Ting-Lu. Max Fizz Death here today to be able to better take on the Landorus, the King Gambit, maybe even the Ogerpon. Spikes, Ruination, Earthquake, and Heavy Slam are the moves we've got going on there. Next up is going to be a speedy, specially defensive, heavy-duty boots Talonflame here. Especially offensive in terms of moves, Flamethrower, Taunt, Roost, and Will-O-Wisp. Near max speed, going to allow us to be the fastest thing on the field outside of that Dragapult. It'll also allow us to speed some of the lower speed Scarfers that he might be packing. Taunt, very useful for trying to shut down that Clefable. Willow, passing around status is going to be great. This thing will also do a nice job, hopefully, against non-Stone Edge King Gambit. Final member of the team is going to be our Terra Captain for the day, and that is going to be Clear Amulet Glastria making a debut. Clear Amulet on there to stop the Intimidate from the likes of Landorus and the Hitmontop. We have Terra Fighting, so that we are not completely bopped by both of them, including that Terra Earthquake from Landorus that I'm kind of anticipating. Icicle Crash, Heavy Slam, High Horsepower, and Body Press is very good neutral damage across his team. So, that is what we are going to be rocking out with today against Kahuutz. Let's get into the battle screen and see what he's decided to bring against us. So, Kahuutz has decided to bring Dragapult, Salazzle, the Landorus, Espeon, Lantern, and King Gambit. A lot of things I was expecting. No, Ogerpon is pretty huge. He told me he was going Terra Ground on the Landorus and Terra Fairy on the Lantern. That's kind of to be expected. Ground goes hard into my team, and Terra Fairy Lantern with Volt Absorb pretty much walls my Raging Bolt that I didn't decide to bring. Either way, my best lead is going to be Blastoise. Hopefully pivot around, tank some hits here and there, and try and get me some good initiative into my heavy hitters. That's what we're going with. Let's see how the battle goes. So, here we go with MBC Week 2 against Kahuutz and the Hawaiian Kommo-os. There he is. He is going to be leading off with the Lantern, as we're going to lead with Blastoise. Now, I don't overly fear this guy. I'm anticipating him to be very specially defensive, so I should be outpacing. And if so, a Volt Switch is only going to do about a quarter of my health, if that. And also, the switch into my Ting-Lu is fairly obvious to try and wall out an electric type hit. So predicting him to maybe over-predict or even just go for that Volt Switch if he so chooses, I don't mind staying in and just getting damage on this guy. I need big damage on a Lantern if I want to take it out. This thing is very tanky. So I'm going to stay in, go for Earthquake, and try and chip it down early. So in comes the Earthquake. As you'll see, that is going to do just under half his health. And the over-prediction turn 1, expecting Ting-Lu to see Surf come in and do absolutely nothing, which is great. Now, assuming he's going to be Volt Absorb, I'm also assuming he's going to want to get on out of there and preserve some health on this guy. So I'm expecting the hard switch here into, well, anything really, maybe even the Dragapult to get some early power going his way. I'm just going to go for the flip turn and try and get some initiative. Now, he is going to make that hard switch, and he's actually here going to go out into Ang, and that, as you see, is going to be the Landorus. So he's going to get the Intimidate, which is going to mitigate some of the damage I'm able to do with this flip turn, and that's going to do around about 20-ish%, which is good chip damage to have onto this Landorus. But this is an early chance to get something going with my Terra Captain. If he is indeed Terra Ground with Earthquake, we will take 2 of them barely. I'm anticipating him to want to get out of there, but I'm going to Terra and go for Body Press immediately, just in case he wants to get cheeky and try and go into that King Gambit. Now, Kahuutz is actually going to make the ballsy read here. He's going to stay in and Terra, knowing without my Raging Bolt that his Terra Fairy and Lantern isn't actually going to be that important to him. And he's going to get more out of Terra Ground Earthquakes from the Lando. So he is going to stay in here, and I'm going to Terra as well. So we get this turn 3, I believe it is, double Terra. He goes ground. I'm going to go with Fighting. Now, my Body Press is going to do a decent chunk. Now that he's not resisting it, he's lost that flying typing. Either way, he is going to go for Earthquake. Now, we have max HP investment, so this Earthquake is going to come in and it's going to do just under half. We're going to go for that body press. And this is going to do some decent damage. It's going to take him down, looking like a 2-hit KO, but he does have the Citrus Berry. Now, this is unfortunate because we don't get to kill him, but it does mean he's not scarfed, which is great. Now, I'm hoping that I will live this next Earthquake. He might stay in and go for it, but I'm not going to overpredict anymore. I am just going to go for the Icicle Crash and see if we can't take this thing out. This Landorus with its Terra Grand is a huge threat to me, and I need it gone. It is storming something terrible outside. I hope you can't hear that too hard. Here comes the Earthquake, and as you'll see, we are barely going to live it. We're going to go for the Icicle Crash, and we're going to miss. Straight off rip, Glastria letting me down a little bit there. Should have gone for Avalanche, that would have been better. Unfortunately, we are not going to land the Icicle Crash, and at this point, Hidalgo, unfortunately, is not going to be doing me any favours. I do consider the switch into my my Talonflame here, but there's always a chance that he is going to go for like a Rock Slide, predicting that. So I'm just going to stay in, go for Icicle Crash, and just see what happens. If Hidalgo goes down, unfortunately, so be it. And as you'll see, that Terra Ground Earthquake is going to come in from the Landorus. That's going to take out my Terra Captain. Very unfortunate stuff. I was rather hoping that Hidalgo could do a bit more work there and at least nab the KO, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately. Now, at this point, it becomes a game of chipping down the Landorus. Now, I will live an Earthquake from this guy. Basically, what I need to do is try and put him in range of probably my Iron Valiant. So I am just going to go for a flip turn here. As I say, I'll live the Earthquake if that's what he chooses to go for. But I think he's left it in against a threat that could have taken him out, and he managed to get around it quite well. So I don't think he's going to want to stay in here and take what will amount to probably about 35-ish% more on his Landorus. So I'm predicting him to just want to get out of there. I'm going to go for the flip turn, and once again, Blastoise is hopefully going to try and get me that initiative in this game. So, as you'll see, he is going to make that play and switch on out of there with Landorus. He is going to go back into the Lantern. So more chip damage on this is always good. As you'll see, flip turn, going to come in here and chip this thing down just that little bit more and allow me, hopefully, to get a better position in this game. Now, with no Ogerpon on my opponent's side, I can afford to play Petron a little bit more freely. So I'm going to go into it on the Lantern. Now, I probably won't even take it out with Malignant Chain, especially if he is a specially defensive set like I'm anticipating. And the problem with Petron is it does invite in the King Gambit. So I go for Nightshade here, just in case that's what he wants to go for. We outspeed, he's going to go for Volt Switch, do a little bit of damage, but Lantern is now very much in range of my Iron Vow. And we have Petrunt in here, waiting to see what he's going to go into to counter me, which, to be honest, could be any number of things. So, in on Kahuutz' side is going to come the Espeon, a mon that I wasn't fully anticipating to come, but here it is. Now, Blastoise is Assault Vest, and it will take any given hit from this guy. So, I'm going to make that play go out with Pidea the Petrunt, not wanting to take a Psychic, and I'm going to go into my Blastoise. Now, he's not going to be able to do a huge amount to me, and as you'll see, it's Psychic that he opts to go for, and that is going to do under 100 points of damage just about. So, Blastoise is still looking really good here, and once again, it's just what Blastoise is going to do, flip turn around and get myself into a better position. Now, from the damage he did to me, I thought he might be Scarfed, so Calm Mind is a little bit scary. However, Espeon has paper-thin physical defense, and I have some investment in attack, so the flip turn here is actually going to end up doing a good amount of damage to this Espeon. And once again, Blastoise is putting in a shift here by getting that slow initiative. Now, I can go into my Ting-Lu here. Even if he is packing the Alluring Voice at +1, it is not going to be doing much to me. So, and I have the Citrus Berry, just in case it does do more than I was hoping. So I am going to go into my Ting-Lu after the flip turn, and maybe even scare this thing out. Like, it's clearly not Specs, it's not Life Orb, it's not going to be doing a massive amount to me, and an Earthquake, given how much the flip turn did, is going to do quite a big chunk, if not just straight take it out from here. So, in comes the Ting-Lu, Vesleruin going to go off, and I'm going to lock in with Earthquake. So here indeed comes that Alluring Voice at +1, it's going to do just under half. Once again, that's a lot of that going around this game. Going to go for Earthquake, are going to score the crit. Now, I don't believe he had any physical defense investment on this Espeon. Ting-Lu has good natural physical attack, so I don't know how much that realistically mattered in terms of the damage. But the upshot of it is that once again, Ting-Lu is going to take the first KO for the game of us. That was nearly a sentence. The first KO of the game for us. That's better. I believe it has now started actively hailing outside. Anyway, in comes the Salazzle, which threw me for a while. Because an Earthquake will just kill this thing dead. And then it got me thinking about my semi-quarter-final game in the PPL against Jack, and how Salazzle was Sash Endeavour. And I don't have much that really wants to outspeed this guy. So I was worried that he was going to just ruin my Ting-Lu with Sash Endeavour and then just kill me. So I kind of panicked a little bit, and I decided to go into my catch-all special wall in the form of Blastoise. It'll take an Endeavour fine because we haven't damaged it. As it is, he's actually going to go for Toxic, which is interesting because, like, Earthquake would have taken it down to a potential Sash. But given that he's a Toxic set, presumably with Corrosion to get round my my Pecharunt, it's probably not Focus Sash. And it turns out actually he wasn't. He was Heavy Duty Boots. So he wouldn't have been able to really do anything other than Toxic my Ting-Lu. So a very good bluff on Kahuutz' part, which really succeeded. And now my Blastoise is on a bit of a timer, but once again I am just going to go for the flip turn. I don't think he's going to want to stay in here having seen Earthquake on Blastoise, which will just kill him. So I am again just going to go for the flip turn and get on out of there in front of this Salazzle. So Salazzle is going to be withdrawn. Kahuutz is going to make the play once again back into that Lantern, who has taken a lot of chip damage, and this flip turn is not going to kill. But he's at very low health and there's nothing really this Lantern can do. So what I'm going to do is just go into my Iron Val. So Iron Valiant here being Scarfed is an interesting one. As you'll see, I'm pretty much just going to go straight into it. The thing is, Fairy is quite spammable into my opponent's team. It's only really, as I say, that Salazzle that can take it. So he's not going to want to save this, and if he is going to go into that Salazzle, I have a fairly free switch back into my Blaster. So I'm going to go for Moonblast and see what we can do here. And as you see, he is going to leave in the Lantern. Moonblast is going to come in and take that down. So, Lantern is down, and now I have Iron Valiant on the field. So, back in for Kahuutz is going to come the Salazzle. If I'm Scarfed, then I have to get out of there. If I'm not, he will outspeed me and can destroy me with a Sludge Wave. Neither of those options are good for me. So I'm going to have to get out of there, and it's going to be Pecharunt that is the best play I have to make here. Like I say, there's no Ogerpon, and weirdly no Clefable, so I can be a bit more free with the Pech. In it comes, he is just going to go for that Sludge Wave. Now that is going to do very little to me. But Pecharunt really doesn't do much else in this game, to be honest. Those top three, Dragapult, Landorus and Kingambit, will all beat me. So I am just going to have to stay in here and try and get as much damage on this as possible. That's what it's become. Here comes the Toxic, gets around my Poison typing with that Corrosion, but basically what I'm going to be doing here is just spamming Nightshade. I need this Salazzle to be put in range of my my Iron Valiant in some way, shape or form. So getting that consistent 100 damage onto him is going to be incredibly valuable. Now he's going to reveal the Substitute, which is fair. This is a very long workable set from Salazzle, the Corrosion Toxic sub. But as I say, Pecharunt doesn't do much for me in this game, given that the threats I brought it for aren't here. So I can afford to use Pecharunt in this way and just keep hammering this Salazzle. Now at this point I'm at about half health, and I was like, is he going to be that guy? Is he going to be the guy that runs Toxic Sub Protect? So at this point, knowing that I will still get a turn after this, if he doesn't go for Protect, I am going to go for Recover here and get myself up to a better state of health. He is going to go for the Substitutes. He isn't Black Sludge, he isn't Leftovers, so that's the last sub he can make. I'm going to go for my Recover. Now, assuming his last move isn't Protect, it's very likely to just be Flamethrower, and I will take one of those, so I am going to be able to go for a subsequent Nightshade, break that sub, and if Pidgeot here has to go down, then so be it. So, in is going to come that Flamethrower, and with the Toxic damage, that is easily going to two-shot me from there. But the important thing is, he is not behind a sub when Petrarch goes down, which will happen on the next turn. So the substitute fades. This Salazzle is at about 10-ish%, and running the Kahuutz, that is in Moonblast range from my Iron Valiant. So I'm happy to let Pidia go down here. It's done the job it needed to. Not the job it was brought for, but the job it kind of had to adapt to. So in comes the Flamethrower. That is, of course, as we knew, going to take out Petrarch. But Petrarch has done a really nice job here against the Salazzle. Salazzle, as I say, is in range from Iron Valiant, and that is why I'm going to choose to bring in. So we're halfway there. 3 of Kahoots' mons are gone, but it is those big 3 left. And basically, well, I say that I'm getting ahead of myself once the Salazzle goes down. And what I have to decide now is, what do I want to tempt in? Because when I outspeed and kill him, he'll know I'm Scarfed. If I go for Moonblast, that's going to bring in the King Gambit. If I go for Aura Sphere, it's going to bring in the Dragapult. So it depends, what do I want to bring in right now? And I decide what I want to bring in is not the Dragapult. I want to bring in the King Gambit. So I'm going to go for Moonblast here. It will take out Azula, the Salazzle, and we will assume from there that the King Gambit is going to come in afterwards. So in comes the Moonblast, and as you'll see, that is going to take out the Salazzle from that tiny range of health. Down it goes. And like I say, he's now going to know that we are Scarfed, and hopefully this will tempt in the King Gambit. And indeed, the King Gambit comes in. And as you'll see, he is Supreme Overlord. So he's got a boost to those attacking stats. However, we are kind of prepped for this. I do have my Talonflame in the back with a good amount of HP investment, and hopefully the ability to take this guy on. So that is what I'm going to choose to go into right now. I know that I will take a Kowtow Cleave into a Sucker Punch. Like, I'm built for that. But it won't matter, because essentially what I'm planning here is he's going to go for Kowtow Cleave right now, or maybe even Iron Head, and then I'll go for Will-O-Wisp on the next turn to get around the Sucker Punch. So, Pontiac is going to come in, and it is going to be that Iron Head that comes in. That's going to do just under half again, and we get the Flame Body Burn. That's pretty big. Now, in general terms, it doesn't matter overly, because I was locked in to go for Will-O-Wisp next turn anyway. It just means that I can afford to go for Flamethrower, because I know from this range, even when he's at +3 boost from Supreme Overlord, I will take a Sucker Punch. So what I'm going to do is go for Flamethrower for that consistent damage, and then Roost next turn. So here comes the Sucker Punch. That is going to take me down quite low, but it's not going to kill, as I knew. So Flamethrower is going to come in. That is going to do around half health. The burn is going to take him down a little bit more. And now that Sucker Punch is just, I think, going to be too tempting. So I'm going to go for a Roost and get around that. And as you see, the Sucker Punch is just too tempting to go for. It's not going to do anything. I'm going to go for the Roost, and Talonflame is going to get back up to a really nice amount of health. Now, the King Gambit is going to be saved here for some Sucker Punch stuff at the max boost at the end of the game. In is actually going to come the Landorus here, which is interesting. As you'll see, I'm going to go for Flamethrower, and that is going to score a crit and a burn. That is just... that's no good for Kahuutz. That is no good at all. We don't have much in the way of special attack investment. It seems very likely he will have taken 2 Flamethrowers. Obviously, I'd have gone for Will-O-Wisp on the next turn because I know I outspeed, but it's just salt in the wound, and it's really unfortunate for Kahuutz because I'm going to be able to go for the subsequent Flamethrower, and that is going to take out the Landorus without him being able to get any damage. I would assume that even through a burn, something like a Stone Edge would have taken out Talonflame. The upshot of it is we get very fortunate there with Talonflame putting in some work, and the Landorus is going to go down, but the big guy is still in the back, and in comes the Dragapult. Now the Dragapult is going to go for Dragon Dance, seeming like sort of last chance saloon to get some setup going. However, my main priority here was to burn it, because if he's physical, that is really going to help Ting-Lu take it on, and if he's special, Ting-Lu should be taking it on anyway. Now he's going to be forced to go for another DD, but this was my plan with Talonflame here all along. First burn him, then taunt him. He can outspeed me all he wants, but Ting-Lu is going to tank those hits. So He's going to go for another Dragon Dance here. He kind of has to do this. But I'm going to taunt him to make sure he cannot get any more boost. So, second Dragon Dance as the wind really picks up outside. It's getting epic here, gang. He's going to go for the second Dragon Dance. He's at +2 speed, +2 attack, but he's burnt. And now he's taunted. So, the Dragapult is going to be forced now to attack Talonflame. And I'm very willing to let Talonflame go here because it's looking like we might have an endgame sewn up with the combination of Ting-Lu and Iron Valiant. So now in comes the Dragon Darts, and burned at +2, that is going to take out my Talonflame. But Talonflame has done a really good job with some quite fortunate circumstances, it has to be said, and Dragapult reveals itself to be Life Orb. That is quite good for us because, you know, Ting-Lu is still quite healthy, it still has a Citrus Berry to pop, and he is going to be worn down by Life Orb and Burn. So, Ting-Lu is going to be the play I make here to get as much damage as possible onto this Dragapult and hopefully help see this match out. So, Ting-Lu is going to hit the field here, and my play every time is just going to be going for Earthquake. Now, Dragon Dance is going to come in and do absolutely nothing. It takes us down with the first hit. We get our Citrus Berry, which takes us to a really, really healthy amount of HP. The second dart comes in and doesn't take us below half. Life Orb is going to chip down that Dragapult, and as you see, we're going to go for the Earthquake. Now, that isn't quite going to take out the Dragapult, but the Dragapult is going to go down next turn. And at this stage, it's very likely that Ting-Lu sees out this match, but I am going to make the safest play possible at this point. And the safest play possible is to go into Blastoise. Reason being, if by some miracle the King Gambit is able to pull something out of the bag, Moose Bolton is going to be much more valuable than Blastoise for taking it on. So I'm going to make the very, very safe play, and I'm going to go into Blastoise. The combination of a Dragon Dance and Toxic will very likely see Blastoise go down here, which is fine. That's absolutely fine, I don't have a problem with that. So as you'll see, Dragon Dance is going to come in, and the Life Orb is going to take down Dragapult in front of Blastoise, which is going to count as a KO for Blastoise. But that's fine. Essentially, Toxic is going to take me down. If not, I'd have just gone for Earthquake onto the King Gambit in the end game anyway. What it ostensibly means is that we have King Gambit versus Ting-Lu and Iron Valiant, and we know that I'm going to outspeed him. And with the Kahuutz, even if he's Adamant, Max Attack, Black Glasses, with the +5 boosting from that ability that it gets, Supreme Overlord. Shut up, Weather! A Sucker Punch will not take out Iron Valiant from full health. So I'm very safe to go into it, and even if he's Chople, he's not going to be saved from an Aura Sphere. So, King Gambit going to hit the field on the opposite side. Iron Valiant is going to come in for me. As you'll see, he has the maximum boost from Supreme Overlord, but that is not going to help him. A Sucker Punch will not be taking us out from this kind of range. I can just go for an Aura Sphere, and even if he has Chople Berry, we will KO him through that. Kahuutz sees which way the wind is blowing. He's not even going to try for it. He is going to go down to the Aura Sphere. Iron Val takes the third KO of the game, and that is going to be the game. So, another 2-0 win. We take our second 2-0 win in a row. We are 2-0, +4 for the season. Great game to my man Kahuutz. His links down in the description below. Again, make sure you check them out along with everyone else. We did get quite fortunate there. Talonflame matching up into the Landorus was a very fortunate series of events for us. In the short term, it wouldn't have mattered when it comes to taking out Landorus, because I would have just gone into Val and Revenged. But it did mean that I wouldn't have had Talonflame around to help mitigate the threat of Dragapult. But then again, at that point, I would have just locked in on Moonblast and hopefully picked up those kills. So would it have mattered? Very difficult to say. I did have pieces in the back that could have done work, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I got very lucky with Talonflame against the Landorus. But I think for the most part, for the rest of the game, we both played a pretty good one. So once again, thank you very much, Kahuutz, for the match. And again, his links, make sure you check them out. I will say it again and again, make sure that you do it. So, we're 2-0 from our first two games. That is grand, but as ever, things don't get any easier. Next week, we are taking on an old friend. We are taking on someone I haven't battled since PPL Bolton Flare. We are taking on none other than KJ and the Cleveland Indeedies. That's going to be an absolute barnstorm. I hope you stick around for it. Thank you so much for watching this one. Do hope you've enjoyed. But I'm getting out of here because I've rambled on for far too long. So my final thank you to you all for watching. And I guess with that, I will see you next time. Laters.